Hey guys, it's Daniel here. Welcome back to another tutorial. This is the second one in our series for our planet destruction. Last video we looked at making the surface of our planet. As you can see here, we did that, and in this video we're going to actually be making a cloud layer and the atmosphere around our planet. So stay tuned. Alright, let's get into it. So if we go into render view, we see we have our planet, and we actually want a cloud layer over that. So we're actually going to duplicate. So if we press Shift D and then we scale up just a bit, make sure it's a bit bigger than the planet, and then let's actually name our stuff. So we'll name our first one planet, then our next one we're going to name clouds. And now I'm actually going to duplicate again, because what we want is 3 layers. We want our atmosphere, which is going to basically be the sort of that glow. Like if you look at the Earth, it has like a blue glow around it. That's the actual air and air volume around the Earth. We want that effect, and that's going to be our outer sphere. So we'll call that one atmosphere. And within that, we've got our cloud layer and then our planet underneath. So I'm actually going to hide the cloud layer to begin with, and we're going to start on the material for the atmosphere. So let's go to Material tab, press the minus to remove the planet material that we've currently got. Let's actually name that. So we'll go here, name it planet. There we go. Now we'll go back to our atmosphere, add a new material, remove the principled shader, and then we'll add a transparent shader and a diffuse. We'll actually set up our base material to begin with. So we'll do it the same as with our planet. We'll have our diffuse and our glossy, and we'll mix them together. We'll add them and then mix our glossy with an empty socket. I'll make it fairly rough and lower that. I'll put a Fresnel on it. And then what I actually want to do is mix that surface shader with our transparent so that we can see through it. Because what we're trying to do with this one is actually create the appearance of volume. We're trying to fake that appearance. So we want to use a layer weight. And what that is going to do, so we'll actually just go into rendered mode so you can see. We'll remove our planet for now. We'll just, yeah, okay. Now it's actually the wrong way around, so let's just flip our sockets. There we go. Okay, and what that is doing is faking the effect of volume. So we've got this thin layer where the distance between our eye and the surface of the planet is shortest, in the middle, and then towards the outside where it starts to become longer, the atmosphere appears thicker, and that's what we want. So we'll just remove our planet again, tweak it. We'll actually change the color. I think I'm going to go for like a blue, a very pale blue. There we go. And now I'll just press 3 to go to side view, or 1, you can go to front view if you want. And I'll actually scale things down because I think things are a little too big. So we've got our planet down there, we'll get our clouds, and our clouds must be very close to the planet's surface. There we go. And then I'll have my atmosphere scale that down because it was a bit big before. Yeah, I think that's good. All right. So now we want to get a color ramp, and we're going to put that between our layer weight and our factor so that we can control the gradient. And basically what we've got so far is if we just plug it in straight to our output, we've got this gradient, as you can see, where it's darkest in the middle and thickest or lightest at the edge. Now what I want to do is actually fix the problem of this hard edge here. So you think in real life, with the volumetric quality that an atmosphere has, it actually becomes less dense the further away it gets from a planet's surface. And so we want to actually have a gradient along the edge here. And we can use our layer weight to help achieve that. So I'm just going to go to B-spline to soften it up. Actually, no, we'll use ease. Ease will be soft enough. So we've got black on one side, which is the center, and then white, which is our edges. But we want to have it move to black again, right at the edge, right at the very edge. So I'll just make this extra point, make it black, and we'll zoom in and take a close look at what's happening. Alright, and we can see we're starting to get that effect now. Alright, so we'll pull it in, and I'll actually pull down my white a little bit. So if we mute it, I want the brightest part to be the same as when the color ramp isn't active, so I'll mute it and try and compare. Yeah, so it's still a little too bright. Alright, we'll push this up. And yeah, you sort of have to tweak this one because it's a bit fiddly. Alright, so I've worked with it for a little bit. I changed to B-spline because it was softer. And I think it works really well. So I've got a bunch of points in here, this being the brightest point. And I cut the dark part in a little bit just with this one. As you can see, just add that in and darken it, just darken the center. And then we've got these points which are quite dark to just bring in the edge a bit, and I'll mute it to show you what it looks like without it. So yeah, as you can see, a big improvement. It's completely hard here, and then when we use the color ramp, nice and soft. So yeah, we'll stick with that. Then we'll plug it in, and we've got our atmosphere. Of course, we can add in a multiply if we want to change the amount. Obviously 0 being none, and then to 1 or even further. So now, as you can see, at 2 we've got a more dense atmosphere. Excuse me. And that actually looks pretty cool. I'll lighten it a little bit. Maybe 1.3. There we go. That's looking cool. So that's our atmosphere. Next, we want to do our clouds. So we've got our cloud layer. And that is actually the same material as our planet at the moment. So let's just remove that and add in a new one. Call it clouds. Just name our atmosphere as well. Alright. So we'll do the same thing again. So we'll actually just grab all our stuff and... No, we don't need to. Add in our shaders. Same setup as before. And clouds are actually fairly rough, so I'm going to put the roughness up high. Yeah, so because they actually scatter the light around. So yeah, we'll just put that up very high. And then what we'll do is we'll mix to a transparent like we did before. Alright. Here we are. Now we actually want to do a noise texture. So once we bring that in, we'll be able to play with that, and we'll actually be able to determine where our clouds actually appear. So we'll first just get our color ramp, which will allow us to cut away at our cloud layer. We'll take a look at that, and we have the beginning of our clouds. Looking very low resolution at the moment, but we'll get there. Alright, I'll scale it up, and I'll actually increase the roughness, increase the detail as well. There we go, we're getting a lot of detail now, and even that looks pretty cool. Alright, so I'll actually add some distortion so that they actually appear to wave around. So, because what the distortion does, I'll actually turn the resolution. Actually, no, you can already see it working. So if we go to 0, it's just all over the place, but distortion actually starts to create like curvature in the texture. And that is cool because what it does is it makes it start to look like there's like all these low and high pressure systems happening around the planet. Like there's curvature, there's a bit of clouds here and there. You got a circle happening there, so that's like a low pressure system or something, and it just creates those different parts that form the weather around the planet. So yeah, that's looking pretty cool on its own. We can try and see how it looks with another noise texture, and this just creates more variation and breaks it up some more. Putting it through another one. Yeah, and as you can see, like that's pretty much. We have the formation here, like just these two noise textures pretty much do it for us. You can experiment more with it if you want, but I'm probably just going to stick with this because this looks pretty nice in my opinion. We can of course change the scale, see what we get. Change this. Yeah, I think I might lower it a little bit. But yeah, that's looking pretty cool. Now, I'm actually going to create the bump for our clouds, because at the moment all we've done is create a mask between where we want to be able to see through to the planet's surface and where our clouds actually are. It's just a mask so far. The actual clouds themselves are just this flat material without diffuse and our glossy. So we want to actually add a bump. So I'm going to start with a Voronoi texture. So we'll plug the distance into the normal. We'll put our bump node in with our height. Then once that's all plugged in, I will be able to add some bumps to our clouds and have them like have this puffy look to them. So we zoom in. Our Voronoi is very big at the moment. I'll scale it up. Let's try 60. And I'll actually get a color ramp. Let's flip this around. Alright, so if it's flipped around, I'll go to B-spline as well to soften it up. And let's push up, this one. Push up this one, and this will help flatten our Voronoi. It's coming through very strongly. What I actually meant to say was we actually have to change the setting from F1 to smooth F1, and that will just make the boundaries between each like Voronoi tile or cell smoother. So we'll have our smoothness up to 1, and then we should get a much softer look. We've also got to change the amount of bump that we have. It's a bit strong at the moment, so let's add in a math node, set it to multiply, and then we'll go from there. Alright, it's taken quite a while. I'll just tone down some stuff, so probably can get away with a little subdivision level 1 for our atmosphere and our clouds. I'll just quickly save as well. There we go. And we'll go back to render view. Now our texture is actually behaving a bit strangely. Let me figure out what's wrong with it. It's doing some janky stuff. So give me a moment. Cycles is also behaving very slow as well. What is happening? Sorry guys, it's my CPU rendering. Alright, so that's an important thing. If you got a GPU, try rendering with that. You might find that it's quicker, depending on your hardware. Alright. There we go, now we're noticing some speed. Hopefully we can figure out what's wrong with this. So let's pull back our ramp. Ah, okay. Yeah, I had pulled it the wrong way. My apologies. So I'll pull it up this way a bit just to sort of, yeah, and you can see it happening there. You can see our puffs from our clouds or from our Voronoi right there, and we've softened it up a bit by pulling this up. So yeah, now it's not so harsh. So yeah, I'm happy with that. And I'll just adjust the scale some more. There we go. I think I'll tone down my strength. And then we'll actually add some more layers of detail. So what I'm actually going to do is create a little bit of variation with this Voronoi first. So we're going to create a mix node, color mix, and then we'll get a noise texture. And what this is going to do, actually let me just first plug in this. So Control T to add the mapping and texture coordinate node. Generated is fine. Yeah, sorry, we want to put a noise through a Voronoi. So well, first, to make this easier, let's actually remove our mask. So plug this straight in. So we've just got a flat layer of clouds. It looks kind of like styrofoam now. Let's get this and put our textures through each other. So now you'll get different results based on how you plug your textures into each other. So I've put my Voronoi first and then the noise, and that's not what we want. See, it's putting like a Voronoi through the noise pattern, creating these lines, sort of like a topography map. That's not what I want. I sort of want to put the noise through the Voronoi, so the other way around. So I'll get my noise, put it behind it, and then we get our Voronoi being warped by our noise. So let's just get our mix now. I wanted to basically get our original Voronoi and then the version with our noise. And then we can change the factor. So I'll just up my scale a little bit, see how that helps. Turn it down just a little more. We only need a little bit. It just acts as a factor to help us warp and randomize our Voronoi a little more. So you can see it bending a little bit. Yeah, it's a subtle effect. I think I'll lower it even more. So it does have a very quick effect on it. There we go. I think I'll actually make it a little smaller as well. There we go. That will do. I'll turn it down again. And now let's add more layers. So I want to get an math add node. So let's just duplicate our multiply, change it back to add, and then we'll plug in a noise texture. Alright, scale it up. Want it to be nice and big. Bit of detail, not too much. We don't want it to look too hard, because the thing turning up the roughness is it starts to look very rough and gritty. That's not what we want for our clouds. So we'll see how that goes. Turn it up a bit more. And then we'll get a multiply in front of that to control our strength. Alright, so we'll just put that very low. There we go. I think that will do. We'll see how that looks. And we'll actually get another multiply so we have an overall strength. Put it in front of everything. So then we can sort of start at 1. So that's the default. Then we'll lower from there. So let's go to 0.7. Maybe 0.6. Alright. There we go. Subtle bumps. Now let's get our full material back. And yeah, we can take a look at it. And we can see our patterns through our clouds, which is pretty cool. I think it's still a bit strong, so let's actually lower it. And there we go. It's got some bumps here. and you can change the scale of that, or you can even add more layers of detail. You could get a sorry, it's been very laggy. Let me just turn off rendering. So you could add just another add node here, and then get this, plug it in, and you can basically have another level. So if you wanted to have an even smaller level of detail, you can like make this bigger. Then you got even smaller bumps, give it less strength, and yeah, you can do that. And with any detail, like you could have another level of Voronoi if you wanted to. So yeah, it's infinite possibilities, as many levels as you like, or as many as you need. I'm just going to stick with 2, so I think that's enough. So let's just get rid of that. Alright, and that's pretty much our clouds. And I'll actually walk you guys through the render settings for a moment before we finish up. So we've got our render tab here. Currently we're in cycles, so we've got GPU compute because that's my fastest device. Then we've got our samples. You can change that for your final render if you want to. I'd probably go 256 as a minimum. Then adaptive sampling, that just basically creates a threshold so that the program knows to stop a rendering when a pixel stops changing a certain amount per sample. So basically it makes it work on less samples the further along it gets, so it actually takes less time. I won't, I'm not sure if you guys could understand that. I won't go into detail on it, but basically for your final render, you'll want a low threshold, and you'll set your minimum samples. Let's go something like 32. And you've also got denoising. I will leave that off for now. But things that just tone down the render time, things that tone that down will actually just turn down our light paths. That just means it has to calculate less stuff, so it will render quicker. We'll turn our diffuse raise to 2, because diffuse doesn't need much before it looks good. We'll leave glossy at 4. Transparency, probably get away with turning that down to 4. We'll go to rendered view. You'll know when something's too low because it will look wrong. Yeah, so literally 4 is the minimum for transparency. The moment I go down to 3, we can't see through the atmosphere or the cloud layer anymore. If I were to turn off the atmosphere, yeah, suddenly we can see through, but that extra level of transparency, 3 bounces, isn't enough. It needs more to actually get through and see what's underneath the cloud layer. So we'll leave that at 4. And transmission, we don't really have any transmission, but we'll leave it up some, so I'll just put it at 4. And volume, nothing. We got no volume, so leave it at 0. Clamping, we'll leave that at the default values. I will turn off caustics as well, because that's not needed. Caustics is basically the way light reflects and refracts through objects. So like if you, for example, if you have a glass of water on a table, the light on one side will cast through and like project a little beam, magnified beam onto the table that you can see sometimes. And we don't need those effects for this render. So it ends up being very noisy and takes a long time to render, so it's good to have that stuff off for most cases. Then we'll go to, we don't need motion blur. Performance, that's an important one. So you've got your tile size here. So when you're rendering in cycles, it renders in tiles to make it easier. And the tile size very much determines how fast you can render. So it depends on your device. You might have to do some research or just testing. I've found that with my setup, I'm using a Vega 64 graphics card. I find that around 400 is the fastest for me. Graphics cards are usually larger. They use larger tile sizes, whereas CPUs use much smaller. But yeah, 400 is good for me. You can do some testing. It'll probably be different for you. The other thing is spatial splits, which basically allows you to do faster re-renders. And then, no, the persistent images is the one that allows you to do faster re-renders. So when you're working on things, it'll do the next one quicker because it'll keep some of the data. and use spatial splits. Also helps you render quicker. So those are pretty much all the settings, and now we should be able to do a reasonably quick render. I'll also walk you through EEVEE render settings, since this tutorial is tailored for both rendering engines. They'll both look good. So we'll just wait for it to render. Like I said in the last video, it takes a while in EEVEE when you got complex shaders. So we'll just give it a moment and it will load. Alright, looks like it's done something. Yeah, I wasn't sure it actually had, but yeah, I realized because the thing I wanted to show you was, you'll notice if we look at our sphere at the moment, our transparency isn't working. So to get around that, you have to go to the material tab, go to settings, and then under blend mode you want to choose alpha blend, and that just allows transparency to work. So now we can see that working. Let's get our atmosphere as well. Sorry, our clouds, because we've got to do it to our cloud layer as well. Same setting, alpha blend, and we'll let that load. Alright, and we can see it's working and it looks just as good. So yeah, that's what's great about it. EEVEE works fantastically with these material setups. So that's pretty much it. Turn on bloom as well, because that's nice. Maybe lower the threshold. Yeah, there we go. Alright. Don't really need anything else. Everything else is looking good. Alright. Now the other thing is for the clouds. This is an optional one. Just before you finish, you can add translucency to your clouds if you just want that extra effect of having light be able to sort of pass through. It just helps your clouds, especially when you're using cycles, because that handles it better. It helps your clouds not look so hard. Helps make them look a little more soft, like light can pass through them. And that just helps because we're only using a surface shader. We're not using volumetrics, because I wanted to keep it cheap and quick to render. Because honestly, I've done cloud layers using completely volumetrics, so they behave like real clouds, and it's very noisy, and takes a long time to render, and it's not very good in EEVEE either because volumetrics aren't as good. But maybe I'll go over that and show you how to, because it is pretty cool, because it does behave like real volumetrics, and they're 3D as well, whereas these are just this is just a 2D layer of clouds. So I'll definitely I'd definitely be interested in going over that in a future video. But anyway, that's it for now. Let's just pop it into the camera view and give it a render in cycles, and we'll take a look at that. Alright, so that's our finished result so far. In the next video, I'll show you how to make a backdrop for this. So that'll be fun. We'll be able to put stars around the background and like nebulae clouds and stuff, which will be pretty cool. And after that, we'll be able to go over the actual smoke burning effect for the destruction of our world. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up very soon. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a like, comment and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.